Hello, and welcome to the CDO interview series. My name is Pat Haller. I'm with CDC. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Chris Hickok from Home City Ice. Chris is the Chief Information Officer. Chris, welcome. It's great to see you today.
Thank you for having me. Very excited for the conversation.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to diving into innovation and digital transformation with you and what it means at Home City Ice. So let me start there. What does innovation mean to you, or what does innovation mean within your organization at Home City Ice?
Well, one of the things that really excites me about tech is the opportunity for the amount of leverage that some of the very simple solutions can bring to the business, right? So, rewind the clock back 15, 20 years ago, I wasn't in tech yet, but so few processes were digital, right? Everything was kind of analog, paper, et cetera. And so we've kind of gotten through a phase where there's very little paper and pencil left in the business. So all the basics, all the groundwork is covered. So innovation for us now comes to how do we take the tools that have been implemented over the last 10 or 15 years and really kind of supercharge those results. So for us, we're kind of in an interesting space because there's, I guess you could call it vertical integration. We both manufacture and distribute our own packaged ice. So the distribution for us goes all the way down to the direct store delivery model. So a lot of firms are kind of selling their fleets and running from this. Transportation's so darn expensive, right? And so we have this whole space, whether it starts all the way up at that manufacturing vertical, goes all the way down the distribution to our stores and the maintenance of all of the assets in both manufacturing and distribution. So for us, innovation looks like, how do we make our teams more efficient? How do we take the same amount of input from our people and get more out of it, right? And so one of the things that we've been very interested in, and as a department, has been in the logistics space, because when you're driving 14, 16 million miles in a year, it doesn't take much in terms of a piece of efficiency to be able to supercharge results. So we've done things like implementing route optimization algorithms, automatic scheduling of drivers and trucks. On the manufacturing side, trying to better plan for demand and logging and whatnot of those results so that our people can be the most efficient possible, because we believe heavily in on commission. So if someone's more productive, they get kind of a share of that wealth. And so we've got this cool arrangement where our managers, our drivers, our production are all kind of tied at the hip with us. And as they see these gains, we see these gains, and the whole business moves forward. So it's a very exciting time. And sort of that API economy that's out there, we've been able to plug in a number of solutions directly into our stuff where we're not doing a lot of the heavy lifting. It's just an integration piece. But optimization is a great example. We utilize a partner there, run our routes through it. And over the 14, 15 million route miles, our numbers show it saves anywhere between 5 to 10% of that. So think of the carbon footprint reduction, the driver productivity, lack of fuel, lack of maintenance, all that stuff. So it's kind of easy to get excited for the opportunities that are out there.
And you asked a couple, or led me into one minute question. The KPI. How are you tracking and measuring? The innovation goals. How are you doing that?
So I love our culture. It's a very interesting thing because investment is there as long as you can show that there are results, right? And so it's very easy to kind of say, well, we know, or we feel like our gut tells us that this is better. So when we report those results to the executive team and the board, and they're like, okay, I get the gut, but let's go in depth there and see what that actually means. And so for us, we've sort of refined a discipline of doing, I don't know if you want to call it a study, some sort of results proofing, to where in the case, I love bringing it to something specific rather than just talking in generalities. But in the case of optimization, we took what all of our routes by default were spit out as that our drivers would do. So they're visiting anywhere from 12 to 18 stops in a day. So here's the default order that comes out. Here's the order that you've been running it in. Now let's apply this API on top of it that optimizes the driver's routes. Compare the two, and over the aggregate, over a large enough sample, that's anywhere between 5 and 10%. I think it's like 7.5% on average. So it doesn't sound like much, but given the cost of the API.
Well, I was going to ask you, what does that translate into for the business?
Yes. So for us, the implementation was a pretty light lift. Wasn't a ton of time on our side. And it's a sub 6-figure expenditure annually just to be able to push a button and have that 7 to 8%. And as fuel and maintenance and labor costs rise, that kind of stays in check, that keeps in check along. So It's been a huge thing for us. And there's, probably 10, 15 other examples off the top of my head that we've been able to do that. So it's really great to work for a company that sees the benefits in that investment, but you better believe you got to prove that it's worth it, right?
Yeah. Well, obviously you're chief information officer, the IT team, you guys are probably leading in this, but how are you driving, that or communicating the organ's vision and mission, as it relates to innovation and digital transformation through your team and really, helping to create that culture that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So they, the notion, if you build it and they will come, I think I may have started my technology career with that. That's not the case. That's not how that works. You can build it and everybody walks right by it and has no idea what you're talking about unless you get out there and get in front of that. And so what I mean by that, within the last 2 years, we've made a move to a heavy product model within our organization. So each of our lines of business verticals have a product manager that is not writing code, is somewhat speaking tech to the development team, but on the front side, they're getting out in front, partnering with people on the executive team and the leaders that they designate as people that can kind of speak for the organization. So they're getting the ideas, the wants, and the needs from the bottom up, and then getting that blessing of, all right, hey, here's how we move forward. And so when you involve people from the beginning, I think there's this. I think every technologist wants to feel like they're Steve Jobs. The consumer doesn't know what they want until you tell them what it is. That's I don't think in practice, I don't think we're all Apple here. So being able to partner with them and say, all right, what really are your pain points? And don't jump straight to a solution. I'm not saying tell us what to do. We're not, order takers, but tell us what the pain points are, and we can suggest ways to get in there and solve those issues for you. So I think by involving people to begin with, you're not speaking to a problem that doesn't exist. It's not a solution looking for a problem. We've actually put something out that's solving something. So that makes it a lot easier. But even with that, it's constant engagement. You have to be constantly engaging the business, because just to say, hey, we built this thing, here it is, that's not enough. That's kind of the stage.
I used to have an old boss that always used to, talk sales. He used to talk about forecasting. It's a process, not an event, which basically means you're doing it. So how do you, within your organization with Home City Ice, how do you continue to ensure that innovation, there's changes, is a process and it's not an event, a one-time event? Hey, we did that, we're done. No, we have to continue to do that and continue to evolve.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting. We implemented a business framework this last year called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so what it is a strategic planning framework, but goes beyond that and takes it down to a cadence of meetings, milestones, checklists, et cetera, to be able to say, all right, where are we going as a company? Where do we want to be in 5 years? All right, what do we think we want to do within the next year to help contribute to that? What do we want to do each quarter? So while it sounds kind of like table stakes stuff for business, it's stuff that it's a discipline that a lot of companies aren't in. And so it's very easy for us to, within that framework, say, okay, where as a company do we want to be in this 5 year, 1 year, whatever it is? And so within that, we can help to push it. A recent example of that is with the labor crunch, everyone, we would go into convenience stores, and it wasn't just us. It was a lot of vendors. You would see just empty shelves. What in the world? A beverage case completely empty. We're asking the question, why is that happening? People couldn't get drivers, right? And so for us, making those, like I mentioned, drivers as productive as possible was sort of one of our solutions. Obviously, we wanted to make the employee experience as good as it could possibly be. So we came up with a couple innovations within our space. One was that our customers dealt with us on a receivables basis, completely analog. We're talking, it hadn't changed in 20, 30 years. So within the last year, we've put customer-facing technology out that essentially allows for customers to pay us digitally. And so we're moving away from those manual cash handling. Cash handling ended up being 10 to 15% of drivers' day. And so we've taken those pieces away, and they're able now just to focus on delivery. So again, might not sound like much, but increase each driver's productivity 10 to 15%. It's a huge, huge thing. So within that, it's starting at the top and saying, all right, where are we trying to go? So it's not the IT team out here inventing things like, hey, I think maybe this would help or that would help. It's very nestled into sort of a strategic framework that when the solution comes, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the problem we agreed on. And thanks for solving it.
Awesome. Well, and kind of, I mean, the final question, but it thought occurred, you mentioned it like with the empty shelves, like competitively or just the industry you're in. Why is it so important that you're constantly innovating and transforming the business? What does that mean from a competitive perspective to you?
Absolutely. So there's one of two things. Either, if everyone in the industry kind of has all their ducks in a row, service is an equalizer, or is not a differentiating factor. So if, we don't sell a bag of ice, we sell the service to make sure you have it when you need it due to the seasonality curve of the business, right?
Sure.
And so, if all services being equal, then what we do can be a cost reducer to keep us in line competitively with pricing. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you now that service is not equal. There are a number of competitors we've gained ground on just by being able to implement some of this stuff. And so, you talk about a 10% here for cash handling or an 8% there for route optimization. You start to layer all these Lego bricks on there, and the same input's going to give you a lot more output. And so for us, that's the big thing. And also, to the point where, all right, we get to the level of service the customer expects. Now we can also reduce costs in there, keep our costs competitive and in line with else, and become, tech in that case becomes a huge strategic and competitive driver.
Awesome. Well, final question. It's kind of a two-parter, but in terms of that, like what are the biggest challenges as it relates to that? Because it sounds like you guys are well on a path and you've done a lot of things, or I don't want to say maybe necessarily the low hanging fruit, but you've tackled a lot of things. Like what are the next things, or what are the biggest challenges you see facing that you can really continue to innovate on? And then what does the future, and that kind of leads into, what does the future look like for Home City Ice? What do you see as the next big innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, I talk about all this stuff like we're seasoned pros and this is just easy, and I can do it in my sleep, blindfolded, upside down, etc. But the case really is that we're sort of new in this process, this framework that I've mentioned. And so while it's got us more than we ever have been singing from the same sheet of music, so to speak, we need more reps for it to be that sort of automatic type thing. And so sometimes, and maybe that's just business, maybe that's just humans trying to work together. We agree on a problem, we agree on a pain point, but there's 30 ideas of how to get to the solution. So I think for us, iterating that, just becoming a more refined machine that we can move faster, I think is probably going to be the next big thing within that space. All right, but I'll say that's the next big challenge for us to tackle. Okay. So we've got a process. It's not necessarily ad hoc. It's definitely repeatable. So that piece is maturing. But I think as humans, we get a little bit more used to it. We get used to that process. Life's going to be a lot easier for all those involved. But from a specific innovation and technology standpoint, the thing that's got me very excited right now is what generative AI is going to do for the business. And so not disparaging anyone on the sales or marketing side of a technology firm, please don't hear that. But as a enterprise technologist, I get very kind of worn down by the hype cycle on items. So, you first get into the tech space and you think, oh, wow, this is going to change it all, whatever this is. And then a lot of times you realize, wait a second, this was way overhyped for what it is. Either it's take a step backwards in cost or something and don't really gain momentum. So, generative AI pops out. I think we're all like, whoa, wait a second. Because it just happened. There weren't a ton of people predicting this thing to come out. And I see it, and I also start to see the hype, and I'm like, "Uh-oh, here we go." Same kind of thing. But the more I've dug in, I realized, no, this has the potential to be as transformative as some of the major, internet networking technologies, what they did for us in the past. So for us, we're right now kind of working through how do we integrate our data with generative AI, and then yet the big piece that I see is that I feel like self-service business intelligence has always been somewhat of a pipe dream. You can put it out there, you can use it, but it's still a heck of a lot easier to, ask an analyst or ask an IT person to get that data out for you. But the ability to sort of natural language query enterprise data, and then anyone can quote unquote do a Google search for what they're looking for within the data sphere. I think that's going to really speed up the business's ability to get data, use data, et cetera. So they've always been really great about wanting it and using it. Unfortunately, at times I feel like we can be a bottleneck because we do have a lot of control over those reasons. And so I think it could really have some benefits for us. And there's a number of other ones, but that's the most obvious and kind of concrete use case.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chris, it's really been a pleasure. I appreciate you taking some time to talk with me and discuss what you guys are doing. Sounds like you got a lot of exciting things going on at Home City Ice. So again, please remember to visit CDO magazine.tech for additional interviews and be able to watch this one.
Awesome.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.